We are continuing our gratitude and grief series, and our topic right now is perspective in grief, or really what perspective grief has given us or maybe changed for us. Which we'll try to keep this, a decent time because I feel like it could go on and on. But I will say one of the biggest ones for me was my perspective on really my outlook on who is worth my time would be one. And then how intentional I am with time spent with my family. Those are, I think, probably the top two that come to mind. The circle thing was very closely in line with the suicide. Like the loss being a suicide as opposed to a different loss. Sure. And what I mean by that is, so when I was doing therapy after I lost William, I was very concerned with how I would truly know if my friends and family were okay. And I have a lot of friends. I have my close friends for sure. But then I have friends who I would say are very much like more than acquaintances, but not my immediate first call or like my inner circle type thing. And I already felt this like capacity struggle. Like, another topic in this is the power of no. And that was something that fell under that. And it was, how do I have enough space? So I feel like the people that are important to me, right? I need to find a way to be all in on our friendship, all in on our relationship. How do I know if they're truly okay? How do you ask that? Like, how do there's only 100% of me. And so if I have 5 friends, I can only give 20% to each of them. Kind of this concept of like, how do I manage being who I need to be for these people who are also that person for me, right? How do you have the capacity?
Right.
And that was one of the things we talked about over therapy a lot, is like addressing relationships and like choosing what I make time for and who I make time for. Yeah. And that truly is a choice that I can make. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be addressed out loud. Like if I don't want to make somebody in a certain way, then that's a choice I can make without addressing it to them, Right. But really, like, how do you check in with those people? And then when you are with them, truly being intentional about the relationship. And a big part outside of just that was my family. And I don't mean like husband and kids, like that's to me an obvious, like every day, regardless of grief, but really my family, like my extended family, when we spend time with my family from Wisconsin, when we spend time with Chris's family, like how can we be more intentional about that time because it's not as frequent? Yeah. And how do we, like really make that time worth something where you feel that connection to somebody, or you would know if something's not okay about the people you truly care about the most. Right. So yeah, and maybe that perspective came from a sort of like a fear of losing somebody else. Yeah. But it really shifted my perspective of how my time is spent and really who it is spent with.
So how do you feel like that has continued? So an initial shift, how do I know that the people I love are okay? How do I show up for the people that I need to show up for? How do I start to filter that? And then where do you think you've landed, or how does that continue to play out for you?
So I feel like initially it was something that I kind of like ballooned in my mind as a coping mechanism. And maybe for healing, and kind of like I just mentioned, like that worry that what if somebody else I'm close to is suicidal?
Right.
And I was almost on this mission, to find that out, which sounds so weird, but I'm like, okay, so should I just text these people right now and ask them? Like, like what do I do? Like these people I care about so much, like how do I let them know I'm the person that they can come to if they need something? Like, how do I, they always say, check in on your friends, make sure they're doing okay. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? Wake up every morning and be like, are you doing okay? Like, is that genuine? Is that sincere?
Doing okay?
Yeah. And I don't even know if it was a shift or it's maybe just changed who I am internally, how I treat my relationships moving forward from that.
Like the weightiness to it, like to know that they are okay.
Yes and no. So I think like so like of course I talk about my loss on this platform. I've posted several things on social media, a few things on my blog. Um, but the people that I'm close with, like I talk about these personal things with those people in person and in text and in on the days where I'm just not feeling great, or like those people know. I think what the way I deal with it is all I can do is show you that I'm going to be vulnerable and open with you and hope you know that this is a safe place for you to do the same.
Right. I think as you're talking, what comes to mind for me is, could you imagine if everyone moved through the world with that sense of, are you okay? And if we all had clarity on our 4 to 5 people that were our circle, and or the people that we were checking on, and or just doing life with, where you're saying like, we've got a gauge of how someone's doing. We know if they are having an off day. I think the world would be a different place. I think people would feel safe to be vulnerable. I think that's the scariest thing, is who can you be vulnerable with? And how do you know if a friend is someone you can be vulnerable with? And how do you know what to say or how to do it? And I think that's where people may get stuck in their minds and then feel isolated.
Yeah.
Or dismiss, like, oh, so this idea of comparison, oh, what I'm thinking about, it's not as important. Like, I don't want to trouble them, or I don't want this to be about me.
Yeah.
I think that the people can talk themselves out of allowing themselves to be seen and just be in relationship with someone, because it does take courage to be vulnerable and share how you're doing, positive, negative, or indifferent.
I think to what you're saying is truly, that is part of it, is forming deep enough relationships with someone that you don't feel like you have to censor yourself, or you don't have to question, is it okay for me to say this? Should I, like, you don't have this guard or like, how do I have this conversation with them? You don't, that never crosses your mind. It just comes out of your mouth, and it's going to be received in whatever way it's received in, but like, you're not worried about saying it and they're not worried about receiving it. And that's another big reason I want to build this community, because I understand that people, A, might not have that, or B, might not know how to build that relationship with somebody. And I'm hoping that through this, they can meet someone that they can have that relationship with, or build the confidence in a friendship that they already have, that like, it truly is, and if that's not somebody you can talk to, you need to find somebody you can, or maybe that's not the right friendship to be in general. And that for me was a perspective shift of what I'm so grateful for. Of it started with those small things, and kind of our other little topics in this series, that power of no, we touched on comparison, but like the perspective of what is the most important. And I started small, and it was like, okay, well, these people are in my circle, these people are very important to me, and these are the people I'm going to make sure that I never go a week without talking to or touching base with, or in on, or letting them know I'm thinking about them, or sending them a meme, or whatever that might be. Just like staying present in their life and keeping them present in mine. And then that just grows into like, that is your everyday. You shouldn't have to be like, oh, I got to text this person today. Like,
I think that's a great point, that it becomes, because when it is a relationship, it's two-sided. You're not managing it. You're not maintaining this. It's equitable.
Yes. Yeah. It becomes a part of who you are in your everyday. Like, if you work a 9 to 5, you don't think about what you're going to do the next day. You're going to wake up and you're going to go to the same place, right? Like, you slowly build those relationships. But for me, it took that step back of, well, I only have the capacity for this circle right now. And that's what I'm going to give my time and attention to. And you know what? If those people message me or check in on me, they're the first ones I'm going to reply to. If I have 40 other text messages, those aren't that important right now. Not that I don't appreciate those people, but I have this much energy, and this is where it has to go. Because I also know that those people are truly worried about me. And if I don't reply, they are expecting a response, and they're going to want to know if I'm okay. Where I know there's somebody else I could probably not reply to for 3-4 days, and they're probably going to either forget they texted me, or they're not really that concerned that I didn't reply because they didn't expect it regardless. And it's just really like, I'm grateful for having that perspective on what's important, who's important, and how to like intertwine that with my everyday life and where I spend my energy.
Yeah. It's powerful. And I think some people are living in a similar way where they've been able to make those decisions and maybe they can name those people for themselves and then maybe not. And I think it's important to be mindful for people in this community. Your circle may look like 2 people, it may look like 5 people, but scientifically, really it's 7 is the max. So this isn't this concept of, oh, I need more people in my circle. No, you need whatever has meaning and value to you. But yes, you should have relationships in your life that feel reciprocal and vulnerable and intimate. And if it's more than 7, I bet you could filter that down, because that's just kind of where the data shows truly some of those people are actually in that second circle. It doesn't mean they're not meaningful in your life, but they're not really in that inner circle. And you choose the distance.
Yeah. And in grief, I feel like that is so important. Like choosing the distance, that's a powerful thing right there. Cause it's like, yeah, you have to. You are in, especially I feel like in the height of your grief or when it's fresh or you're in just one of those like bigger waves of it, your capacity is so small for anything outside of kind of what's in your head and in that world at that moment. And like, yeah, I feel like there's also, at least for me, I'll get this like steam of I need to talk to somebody at an event. I need to like, just like pour out what's going on. But once you've done that to like 2 of those people, then you're over talking about it, right? Like, I don't want to say this story again. I don't want to experience this again. I'm drained from talking about it. You've cried so much that you just physically can't cry anymore.
Right.
It's like that same, like, okay, I've word vomited this. I'm out. Like I'm tapped out. I care about you. I love you. But like, all right, I started with this person, and then I told this person, and now I'm done. Or your story just gets shorter every time. It's a capacity thing, and it's real.
Right.
No one has the capacity to do that for 10 people.
No.
Like that would be wild.
No. And I think to your point earlier that when you're in a relationship where you're known and valued, people get that.
Yes.
And they're not offended by it. It's like, all right, cool. If you need to talk to me about it, you're going to tell me.
Yep.
If not, I know you have other people in your life that love you well. And I think that's a beautiful thing about community. And part of what is being created in this community is, for some people, it may not be in their everyday life, but maybe they're finding a way to build relationships with others here where they can have that experience of offloading. And then that's allowing them to show up more in their everyday life. And it's just important that we're not internalizing all of it. And I think that's my biggest concern and life motto: never worry alone. Never hold things by yourself. And it's just important that you're able to identify who the people are in your life that you feel safe, that you can go to when you need them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's a huge thing for me. I can't imagine that anyone who's been through grief isn't grateful for some sort of perspective it's given them. So yeah, I would love to hear kind of a perspective that has been given to people who've been through loss and like really what they've learned through that, or how it's changed them, or how they see something differently. I would love to hear that. So
yeah,
drop them below, guys. We want to see.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. And we look forward to the next one.
Yes.